Well, welcome back from the break. You know, lately I've been watching some of those reality shows, like The Real Housewives of Newfoundland. Wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Sorry, no. The Real Housewives of New York. I want to see how real they are. First of all, they have a camera following them everywhere. Did you know that these women are mega rich and yet they're being paid to be on TV? I don't think that's fair. You know what they do with some of their money? They get butt lifts and boob jobs and facelifts and wrinkles are just not allowed. So minute a wrinkle appears, like off they go to get some foreign substance injected in them. And don't you just love it when they get their lips done? I mean, who decided that looked good? That is not real. Now, I happen to know someone who is real, our next guest. Some of you might know her, or perhaps you've read her books. For those who haven't, it's time for us to get to know Glenda Standeven. Glenda!
Nancy! How you doing, bud?
I'm good. So nice to see you.
Well, I wouldn't have come if you hadn't asked me.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true. I'm glad I asked you.
Thank you,
that works
Nancy.
out perfect. How about we have a seat here?
Oh, this is nice.
Yes. So, Glenda, you just told me just before we started speaking that you were here once before. When was that?
About this time of year, 25 years ago.
Oh, what was it?
I was actually 26 now because Andrew's 25, so I was pregnant. 26 years ago this month, I was on a show with Elaine Gray called It's Your Health.
Oh, and so you were talking about?
I was talking about being pregnant with having no hip or pelvis and what that was like, being one of only 16 women in the world that have ever done it at that time.
So let's backtrack a little bit then and talk about the fact that you don't have your leg and what did you say, your part of your hip and pelvis. So can you tell us what happened?
Well,
And when?
yeah, in 1987 I was having some troubles sleeping on my side, and I didn't think it was anything serious, of course. It was just, it hurt when I'd sleep on there. So I tried more exercise, did a bunch of things, and it ended up my chiropractor. I tripped to my chiropractor. He said, you know, your leg's just not moving the way it should. You need to go and get an x-ray. So my doctor had been treating me for bursitis, but when I asked for an x-ray, it showed that the hip, the femur, the head of the femur had deteriorated to such a point that they couldn't do anything except this surgery. And then it was a whole process for a few months of different tests and different biopsies and things like that, where it went from cancer to benign to when they went in to do the surgery going, this is weird, and then they did another lumpectomy later on at the site of the original biopsy, and it turned out to be a very malignant cancer, so they had no choice, wouldn't respond to chemo or radiation. The only thing they could do was surgically remove the entire leg, hip, and pelvic bone on the right side.
Wow.
So it's called a hemipelvectomy amputation. It's the rarest amputation there is.
that right?
So yes, it's. I feel very special.
Yeah, so you should, but it must have rocked your world.
It actually did, and I think my family and my friends were a huge help to get me through it.
Right.
But also, I kind of cheated. I had this little dream that I was going to lose my leg before I got the diagnosis that it was cancer.
Tell me about the dream.
So it was very odd. I went to sleep and I had this very vivid dream where I was 83 years old, and I dreamt I was 83 and a voice said, "This is your life on two legs." And I thought, oh, cool. So I turned around and watched this like a movie unfold, and I saw the life of my birth of my first son and the birth of a second son, and I saw my husband and I grow old together, and it was very nice. It was a lovely life. And then I remember feeling sort of disappointed, like, that's it? That's all there was? And then this voice said, "This is your life on one leg." And I turned around and I watched this other movie unfold, and I saw the birth of that second son again, and I saw myself growing old with my husband, and I saw so much more hardships. It was harder, but it was also more rewarding. So I saw myself touching people's lives with my story, with my journey. I helped kids, I talked to other amputees, I did these speeches and went to schools and just wrote books, was on TV, did radio shows, and I saw all these things, these connections and strong survivors through this and helping others. Even though it was harder.
And that's exactly the way your life has played out.
And that's exactly what happened. So at the end of that movie, watching this harder movie, and every time I'd fall down, there were strong arms to pick me up. And I never always knew who they were.
Yeah.
That was interesting, that I would fall and be picked up again. So I didn't always know who those strong arms were that were picking me up. But at the end of that dream, I remember going, wow, now that was a life that mattered. That was amazing. Wow. And the voice said 5 words that changed my life forever. The voice said, "This choice I give you."
Oh my goodness.
So when I woke up, I reached for my journal and I wrote in my journal, after the dream I had last night, I know I'm going to lose my leg and it's going to be okay.
Wow.
So when the doctor, imagine this, we're sitting in the doctor's office, my husband's standing behind me, it's a little tiny office, and he's sitting across from me, and he's young, and he's very handsome, and pulls up his chair right close, and he says, "Mrs. Standeven, may I talk to you as if you were my wife?" Well, he's young and he's good looking, I'm not going to say no. So he goes like this, and he says, puts his hand on my knee, and he says, "Honey, if you don't have this operation, you're going to die." And I said, "Okay, when do you want to do it?" And Rick's standing behind me with his hands on my shoulder, and he's going, "What does he mean?" And then Dr. Beauchamp realized, I forgot to say what, operation, I mean amputation. And I went, "Yes, I understand, but when do you want to do it?" And he's looking at me like, okay, she's taking this way too calmly. But I'd already had this dream. I'd already had 2 weeks to come to terms with it. Right. So for me, I just went, accepted it, moved on, and embraced what was the journey to come. And I never told anyone about the dream until all the things that I dreamt and more came true. And then I started speaking about it and telling people that, hardships, sometimes those adversities that we have, those are the things that make us grow. And those are the best lessons, the ones that come from pain.
Right. But how many people get that dream, that vision of seeing how that choice you make is going to end up being like? I don't think that happens very often. Right?
No, I always say I feel like I cheated.
Well, that's a good way to cheat.
I had this grace given to me that to be able to say and to embrace what was going to come, and with confidence that I was going to be okay. Right. And after I wrote in that journal, after the dream I had last night, I know I'm going to be okay. Right.
If you're just tuning in, I'm sitting here with Glenda Standeven, and we're just talking about what's happened to her with her cancer. And now I want to talk to her about the first book she wrote, this one here, Choosing to Smile. By the way, I've read the book, and it's a really good read because Glenda's very upfront. It's not fluffy, all right? And also I'm mentioned in it, but not by name, unfortunately. So
I should have checked.
Tell me why you chose to write the book.
Well, I think when you have this kind of experience, you're not alone. And other people have read this book and went, "Oh my gosh, you were just a brat like I was. Oh my gosh." And I thought I was the only one who did stupid things like that. And I went, "Yeah, no, kind of, you're not alone." And that was what the book was. It wasn't just to be just about cancer. I wanted the cancer not to define me, but I wanted to show who I was before, that goofy brat growing up in Yarrow, and the bump in the road that was cancer, and the whole lot of whoopee after. It's been over 20 years. I lost my leg in 1988. So for me, this book just shares the joy of life, in all its warts and everything, because it's not always perfect. We're going to go through pain, we're going to go through losses, we're going to go through hurts, we're going to go through angst with our kids. Right. And that's what I share, just life.
Life, okay. So I know that in there you talk about like when you had the cancer, you were married for how long?
Only 5 years.
And you had one son.
We had one son, and we had been trying to have another one. We thought that this would be good, but this pain in my leg was kind of holding me back. I wanted to make sure that it was okay.
Right.
And it turned out it wasn't, so we ended up with a 7-year gap almost between our first and our second, so that it was a bit of a break.
Okay, so explain what happened during that. Now you're second for you're pregnant, for your second son, and you don't have a lot of what you need to hold this baby.
No, I have a womb with a view. This is one of those things, and without the pelvic girdle there to support the baby, I had to wrap miles of tensor bandage around me. And I also went to Oklahoma, and they made a special pregnancy prosthetic so that it was a lightweight leg, and it had a flexible bucket around it that would wrap me, and it expanded at the front, so that as my baby grew and my girth grew, the support was there so that I could wear it during the day.
Yeah.
Wasn't really functional. You couldn't go fast on it, but I still used crutches, but it supported where the pelvic bone wasn't. And it was an amazing birth. We actually have a video at home of it. Yeah, and showed this birth of a child coming through a womb when there's no pelvic bone to guide it. It was pretty impressive.
Speaking of prosthetics for just a moment, now I see that you came in on crutches. Do you have a prosthetic? Have you ever used one?
It's a great show and tell piece.
Now let's jump ahead a little bit, okay? Well, quite a bit. So that part of your life, you've had your 2 kids, they're growing up and all these things, and now they're, out of the home or whatever there is, right? Wherever it is, something happens to your husband. That more devastating news.
Yeah. Well, in 2006, he was diagnosed with skin cancer. And again, that was something that if I hadn't had my own cancer journey, volunteered for the Cancer Society, handed out little ABCDs of skin cancer bookmarks to kids at schools, and read it and felt his arm, and I went, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't look right. Let's get it biopsied. It was melanoma. So I always say my cancer journey saved him. And I thought, okay, good. Now we can do the cancer runs together and walks and relay for life and all that. Yay, together. Something we've got in common. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he ended up with prostate cancer. In 2011, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and May 2012, I think it was, he had his entire prostate removed.
Wow. And then you wrote, because of that, you wrote this book here?
And I said, I'm not writing this, Ricky, unless it has a happy ending. This one here, it started off about 300 pages. And prostate cancer is a very intimate disease. So I overshare, as you know. Yeah. I tend to do that. And my husband read the first draft and he goes, no. If you put that book out, we're moving and changing names. So I edited it down and he says, okay, now we just have to move. Edit again.
But again,
and this one.
Another good read. And
it'll save lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you're a male, if you have males in your lives, recommend this book or read it yourself, and then you can pass that information on. Because I think it's very important, and it's so prevalent nowadays, isn't it, with so many cancers. Now, and unfortunately, we're totally out of time.
I ramble. Sorry,
No, it was great. I really appreciate it. I mean, I think we could sit for another hour, but we don't have that time. Listen, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember now, if you want to contact the show, there's ways. It'll be on the screen somewhere. It'll show. We love having you watch the show. So I hope you tune in for the next one. Peace out.